She saw the box before she saw his face. Small, velvet, dark navy, almost black, resting against his palm like he had been holding it for a while, like it was familiar weight, like he had practiced carrying it. Then she looked up and her breath left her body completely. Seo Jinwoo, standing in the entrance of the most beautiful wedding hall she had ever seen, in a suit that looked like it had been built specifically for him, looking directly at her like he had known exactly where she would be sitting and had been waiting for the precise moment she looked up. He had not stumbled in. He had arrived. Nneka's hand found her knee under the table. Ada, is that? Yes. He's the best man? Apparently. Did you know? No. Does he know about Nneka? I'm just asking. I said no. But even as she said it, something cold moved through her chest, because Jinwoo's eyes had moved, just slightly, just briefly, down to the small girl beside Adaize, sitting in white shoes, swinging her feet, completely unbothered by the universe rearranging itself around her. And the expression on his face when he looked at Zara was not the expression of a man seeing a stranger's child. It was the expression of a man seeing something he already knew about. Adaize's blood went cold from the inside out. He knew. He came prepared, and she had absolutely no idea what that meant.
Welcome to Mafia Bloodline Stories, where love is never simple. Second chances always come with a price, and some men, the most dangerous kind, do not show up without a plan. Today's episode has everything: betrayal, strategy, a love that refused to die quietly, a secret 6 years in the making, and a man who spent 7 years preparing for exactly this moment. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on your notifications, because stories like this one drop regularly and you cannot afford to miss a single one. Tell me in the comments which city you are watching from. I read every single one. Now let us go back to Adaize, because Jinwoo just walked in and he did not come empty-handed. Adaize Okafor was not a woman who made the same mistake twice. She was 23 the first time she made the mistake of Seo Jinwoo. She was 30 now, and she had spent every single year in between making absolutely certain she would never be that careless again. She had her career, she had her routine, she had her daughter. And on the mornings when the silence of the apartment pressed in too close and sat heavy on her chest, she reminded herself that she had survived the worst thing a man had ever done to her, and she had done it without flinching. She was a corporate lawyer at one of Lagos's most prestigious firms. She walked into courtrooms and made opposing counsel quietly rearrange their confidence. She wore her suits like armor. She spoke with the measured precision of a woman who had learned early that every word was either a weapon or a wound, and she intended to control which one it became. Nobody in any of those courtrooms would have guessed that the woman dismantling their arguments at 9 in the morning had once sat on a cold bathroom floor in Lagos at 2 in the morning with a pregnancy test in her steady, completely steady hands. Nobody knew that story except her mother and Nneka. Not even Tobena. Especially not Tobena. Her brother adored Seo Jinwoo. That had been the problem from the very beginning. Tobena Okafor and Jinwoo had met 5 years before Adaize entered the picture. A construction project in Seoul, a business dinner that ran until 3 in the morning, and 2 men from completely different worlds discovering they operated by the same internal code. Tobena was loud, warm, magnetic, the kind of man who made a room feel larger just by entering it. Jinwoo was silent, precise, dangerous in the way that very still water is dangerous. They balanced each other in ways that made no logical sense and every human sense to anyone who watched them together.
Adaize had watched them together for years at a very careful distance. She had her rules about her brother's world. She had her rules about the men inside it. She had been disciplined. She had kept her eyes straight and her conversation short whenever Jinwoo appeared at Tobena's gatherings. She had told herself that a man like that, cold and untouchable, and carrying the kind of quiet authority that came from a world most people never survived, could not offer anything worth wanting. She had been spectacularly wrong.
It started in Seoul. Tobena had brought her along to an international architects summit, a rare trip, a reward, he had said, for a year of working too hard. 3 days in a city she had never seen. On the second evening, Jin Yu had offered to show her the city, just one evening. And Adaze, who never made impulsive decisions, who had a system for everything, including her own emotions, had looked at him in the lobby of that hotel and said yes before her logic could intervene. Seoul at night was something she had not been prepared for. The way the lights moved across the Han River, the narrow streets full of warm light and quiet noise, Jin Yu walking beside her with his hands in his pockets, saying less than most men said and meaning more than all of them combined. He listened the way most people never bothered to. He asked questions that made her feel like she was the most interesting person who ever existed. He remembered every small thing she mentioned, her favorite meal, the name of the neighborhood she grew up in, the dream she carried quietly of one day owning a small practice of her own, something built entirely with her own hands. By the time they returned to the hotel that night, something had shifted between them that neither of them named out loud. He walked her to her door. He did not touch her, but when she turned in the doorway to say good night, the way his eyes moved over her face, slow and deliberate and almost reverent, made her breath catch in a way she had never experienced before. She flew back to Lagos, telling herself it meant nothing. She spent the next 2 weeks thinking about nothing else.
What followed over the next 3 months was the most beautiful and most catastrophic thing Adiaze had ever allowed herself. They were careful, painfully, deliciously careful, Jinwoo flying to Lagos between commitments, her still learning the geography of a man who operated in silence and delivered tenderness like it was something he had to ration. He was gentle with her in private, in ways that would have shocked everyone who feared him in public. He traced the line of her jaw like she was something secret. He texted her at 2 in the morning just to tell her he was thinking about her. He held her like he was afraid she would disappear. Adiaze fell completely, all the way down, with nothing to hold on to and no map for getting back up. She told herself he felt the same. She was almost right. Almost. The first sign came in the 4th month. Jinwoo became quieter than usual. Not the comfortable quiet she had grown to love. A different kind. Pressured. Distant. There were calls he stepped away to take. There were evenings he cancelled with apologies that felt rehearsed. Joan noticed. She didn't push. She trusted him the way you trust someone when you have handed them everything and have no instructions for retrieving it. Then one morning, she reached for her phone and there was nothing. She told herself he was busy. She waited through the day. Nothing. She waited through the next 3 days. Still nothing. She called. His phone rang out. She texted. Silence came back. She asked Tobena casually whether Jinwoo had traveled. Tobena said yes. Something urgent in Seoul. He would be back soon. He did not come back. Not to her. 3 weeks later, Adiaze sat on the cold floor of her bathroom at 2 in the morning, staring at 2 pink lines on a test strip. Her hands were not shaking. She had gone past shaking into something much quieter and much more final. The absolute stillness of a woman who understands that she has been left completely and that the only direction available is forward. She did not cry that night. She made a decision instead. Zara would be hers. Only hers. She would build a life so full and so fortified that no ghost of Seo Jin-woo would ever find a crack to enter through. She would be so magnificent in her survival that the story of him leaving would become the least interesting thing about her.
For 6 years, that is exactly what she was. Magnificent. Tobena's wedding was supposed to be the happiest weekend of Adeze's year. Her brother was marrying Su-yan, a Korean-Nigerian architect he had met at an international summit 18 months ago. A woman so warm and sharp and quietly funny that Adeze had loved her within 40 minutes of their first meeting.
The wedding was in Abuja, at a venue that looked like it had been assembled specifically to make people believe in love again. Dark polished wood and warm amber lighting and cascading white orchids and floor-to-ceiling glass that looked out over the city like a promise. Adeze had flown in the day before. She was wearing a deep emerald gown that moved with her body like it had been made for exactly this version of her. Her hair was pinned elegantly, a few soft strands framing her face. Nneka had told her twice that morning that she looked like a problem. Zara had looked up at her with enormous eyes and said, "Mommy, you look like the best lawyer in the whole world," which was, Adeze decided, the highest possible compliment. She had kissed her daughter's forehead and told herself that was enough. That was all she needed from this weekend. She was not prepared for what was waiting inside that hall. She saw the box before she saw his face. Small, velvet, dark navy, almost black, resting against his palm like he had been holding it for a while, like it was familiar weight, like he had practiced carrying it. Then she looked up and her breath left her body completely. Seo Jin-woo, standing in the entrance of the hall in a suit that looked like it had been built specifically for him, looking directly at her like he had known exactly where she would be sitting and had been waiting for the precise moment she looked up. He had not stumbled in, he had arrived. Nneka's hand found her knee under the table. "Ada, is that?" "Yes." "He's the best man?" "Apparently." "Did you know?" "No." "Does he know about Nneka?" "I'm just asking."
I said no. But even as she said it, something cold moved through her chest, because Jinwoo's eyes had shifted, just slightly, just briefly, down to the small girl beside Adeze in the white shoes, swinging her feet, completely unbothered by the universe rearranging itself 3 feet away from her. And the expression on his face when he looked at Zara was not the expression of a man seeing a stranger's child. Adeze's blood went cold. He knew. He came prepared. Before she could decide what to do with that information, Tobena appeared from nowhere, arms wide, steering her forward by the shoulder with that enormous, unstoppable grin of his. "Ada, you're here. Come, I've been looking for you. You remember Jinwoo, right, from Seoul?" And then there was no more distance. 3 feet, 2 feet, 1. Jinwoo looked at her with those dark, unreadable eyes and said nothing for a moment. Just looked, the way a man looks when he has been waiting for a specific moment and is now standing inside it. Then his gaze dropped to Zara, and something happened to his face that Adeze had never once seen happen in all the time she had known him. Something cracked. Something quiet and enormous moved through his expression and was gone before most people would have caught it. But Adeze had spent 7 years studying the shape of this man's absence. She caught it. "You already knew," she said, very quiet, very steady. Jinwoo looked back at her. "Yes." "How long?" He reached into his jacket and produced the velvet box. He did not open it. He held it out to her with both hands, the way you offer something to someone you have wronged. "Long enough," he said quietly, "to come prepared." Tobena looked between them, oblivious and cheerful. You two were always so quiet with each other. "Anyway, Jinwoo, this is my Zara, my best girl." He ruffled Zara's hair affectionately. Zara looked up at Jinwoo with the fearless curiosity of a child who had not yet learned to be cautious around dangerous men. "Are you my uncle's friend?" she asked. Jinwoo looked down at her. The cracking thing happened again, slower this time. "Yes," he said softly, "I am." Zara studied him for a long, serious moment with those dark, slightly tilted eyes. Then she said, with the devastating simplicity of a 6-year-old stating observable fact, "You have the same eyes as me." The silence that followed was the loudest thing Adeze had ever heard in her life. Tobena laughed, unbothered, already being pulled away by the wedding coordinator calling his name across the hall. And just like that, Adeze was alone with him. 3 feet of marble and 7 years of silence, and one child with his eyes standing between them. "Don't," Adeze said quietly. "Ada, not here." Her voice did not waver, not even slightly. "This is my brother's wedding, and I will not let you turn it into something else, not today."
Jinwoo looked at her for a long moment. Something in his expression was very carefully controlled. "All right," he said. "Not today, but I am not leaving this weekend without finishing this conversation." Adaizi held his gaze for exactly 3 more seconds. Then she took Zara's hand and walked away with her spine straight and her jaw set, and her free hand trembling at her side where nobody could see it. If you're watching this right now and your chest is already tight, drop a comment and tell me, should Adaizi hear him out or walk away for good? And if you are not subscribed yet, right now is the moment. This story is only getting more intense from here, and you need to be here for all of it. Adaizi made it through the ceremony. She did not know how. She sat in her seat with Zara pressed warm against her side and watched her brother marry the woman he loved, and she smiled every time a camera turned in her direction. She clapped at the right moments. She pressed her fingers carefully beneath her eyes when Tobena's voice broke on the word forever, because that was genuinely beautiful, and she was not made of stone, regardless of what her courtroom opponents believed. She was present for all of it. And for all of it, she felt Jinyu's eyes on her from across the aisle, like a hand pressed flat against her back. She did not look, not once. She was 30 years old, and she had earned every gram of the discipline it took to not look back. The reception was harder. The venue opened into a sprawling outdoor terrace strung with warm amber lights, and the music was loud and full of joy, and everywhere Adaizi looked, people were dancing. Zara had found 2 other children within 4 minutes and was spinning near the fountain with her white shoes flashing, laughing that enormous, unguarded laugh that always made Adaizi's chest feel simultaneously full and fragile. Adaizi stood near the edge of the terrace with a glass of wine she was not really drinking and watched her daughter and told herself she was completely fine. She was not fine. "You have been watching me all evening." His voice came from directly behind her, low, close. She had not heard him approach. Of course she had not. So Jinyu had spent his entire life learning to move through spaces without announcing himself. It was one of the things that made him formidable. It was also, infuriatingly, one of the things she had once found magnetic. She did not turn around. "I told you not today. You told me not in the ceremony." He came to stand beside her, not in front, beside, looking out at the same terrace she was looking at, as if they were simply 2 guests watching the party, as if her entire nervous system had not just rearranged itself at his proximity. "The ceremony is finished. Jinyu." Adaizi. Her name in his mouth after 7 years of silence landed somewhere deep and undefended. "You are the best lawyer I have ever watched work. You know how to hold a position, but we are both standing at this terrace and neither of us is going anywhere, and we both know this conversation was always going to happen tonight." She was quiet for a moment. Out on the dance floor, Zara had invented some kind of game that involved spinning with her arms out and then falling deliberately. The other children were copying her. She was delighted. "You have until Zara needs me," Adaizi said, finally. "That is all I need." She turned to look at him then, fully, for the first time since the hall. Up close, in this warm amber light, he looked like the man she had known, and also like everything that man had been required to survive to become this one. More defined, harder in some places. But around his eyes there were faint lines that had not been there before, and something in his expression that looked unmistakably like a man who had been carrying something heavy for a very long time. Good, she thought, and then hated herself for how much she still noticed him. "My father called me back to Seoul," he said, still looking at the terrace. "The last night we were together. He called and told me that if I did not return immediately, he would use Tobena as leverage to bring me home. There was a power struggle inside the organization. My uncle wanted control. My father needed me present to hold our position." He paused. "He had found out about you, about us, and he used it." Adaizi was very still. "It did not matter," he said. "I would not have taken the risk. I made the choice to keep you alive." His expression was the most unguarded thing she had ever seen on him, raw with the weight of it. "I told myself that if you hated me, if you moved on, if you built something completely away from me, you would be safe. And you were. You are." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, "I was pregnant, Jinwoo." The words landed between them like something dropped from a very great height. Jinwoo closed his eyes, just for a moment. When he opened them, they were glassy in a way she had never once seen before. "I did not know," he said. "I swear to you, I did not know." Would it have changed anything? She needed the honest answer, even if it broke something. "Would you have come back?" He did not hesitate. "Everything," he said fiercely. "It would have changed everything." She looked away. Her throat was tight. Out on the dance floor, Zara was still spinning, golden in the warm light, laughing at the sky.
"I raised her alone," Adaizi said quietly. "Every fever, every nightmare, every first word, every school morning, and every bad dream, and every single moment she needed someone, I was there, alone. I built her that way. I built us that way." "I know," he said, and his voice broke, just slightly, just enough for her to hear it. "How did you find out?" she asked. "About Zara?" 14 months ago. A mutual contact. A photograph. His jaw tightened. Zara at a school recital in Lagos. I saw her face and I knew within 3 seconds. He was quiet for a moment. "I sat with it for a long time. I did not know if I had any right to come back into your life. I did not know if you would want me anywhere near her. I spent 14 months deciding." She turned to face him. "And what did you decide?" He reached into his jacket. He produced the velvet box. He placed it in her hand. She looked at it for a moment. Then she opened it. Inside was not a ring. Inside was a small folded document and a single pressed flower, dried and preserved carefully, the petals still holding their shape. She stared at it. Then something moved through her chest so fast and so enormous she had to breathe through it. She knew that flower. It was the same flower that had been inside the envelope his associate had delivered to her hotel in Seoul 7 years ago. The only thing inside that envelope. The thing she had stared at for a long time before putting it away and never looking at again. "That flower," Jinwoo said quietly. "My father approved the envelope because he thought it was meaningless. A flower with no note, nothing traceable, nothing that could be interpreted as contact." He held her gaze. He did not know that in Korean, that flower means, "I will find my way back." Adaizi stared at the flower in her hand. "I sent you the only message I was allowed to send, the only one that would not get you killed." She could not speak for a moment. "The document," he said. She unfolded it with hands that were not entirely steady. She read it once. Then she read it again. It was a legal property transfer. A house, a small property on the Lagos coastline, purchased 18 months ago. The name on the document was not hers. It was Zara's. "I could not call," Jinwoo said. "I could not write. I could not come, not while my father was alive and the organization was still standing. So I prepared instead." His voice was very quiet. "I prepared for the day I could stand in front of you and show you that I never stopped, that every year of silence was not absence, it was protection and preparation." Adaizi looked up from the document. Her eyes were burning. She blinked it back with everything she had. "You do not get credit," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "for preparing in secret while I was alone. I needed you present. She needed you present. A house in her name does not give her back the years she did not have a father." "I know," he said immediately. "I am not asking for credit. I am not asking you to call us even. I am asking for the chance to be present now, starting tonight, starting from whatever you will allow." She was quiet for a long moment. Then Zara came running across the terrace toward them, breathless and bright, white shoes flashing, and skidded to a stop directly in front of Jinwoo with a fearlessness that was entirely her mother's. She tipped her head back and looked up at him with those enormous shared eyes. "Do you know how to dance?" she asked. Jinwoo blinked. Something moved across his face that was so tender and so completely undone that Adaizi had to look away from it. "I used to," he said softly. Zara grabbed his hand without a single moment of hesitation. "Come on then. Mommy never dances with me. She just watches." She was already pulling. "You can be my partner." Adayeze watched Seo Jinwoo, the most feared man in any room he had ever occupied, get pulled onto a dance floor by a 6-year-old girl who had no idea she was his daughter. And her heart broke and healed in the exact same second. Zara taught him a dance she had invented herself, something involving spinning arms and stomping feet that made no choreographic sense and was absolutely perfect. Jinwoo followed her lead with complete seriousness. He did not look around to see who was watching. He did not care. His entire attention was on Zara, like she was the only thing in the room worth looking at.
Adayeze recognized that look. He had once looked at her exactly that way. Naka appeared at her side from nowhere and pressed a fresh glass of wine into her hand. She looked out at the dance floor for a long moment. Then she said simply, "That man did not come here to lose." Then she disappeared back into the crowd before Adayeze could respond. Adayeze looked down at the wine, then back at the dance floor. She already knew Naka was right. She had known it from the moment she saw the box in his hand. The problem was that knowing a man still wanted you and trusting him with everything you had rebuilt were two completely different things, separated by a distance Adayeze was not sure she could cross. The evening deepened. The music slowed. Zara came running back, flushed and happy, and declared that she was hungry and that her new friend could almost keep up with her dancing. Adayeze steered her toward their table with a hand on her small shoulder and told herself she would spend dinner focused entirely on her daughter and her brother's happiness and nothing else. She almost managed it, until Jinwoo stood for the best man speech, and the entire room went quiet in that instinctive way rooms always did when he commanded them. He spoke about Tobena with a warmth that was quiet and genuine and completely at odds with everything his reputation suggested. He talked about loyalty, about the kind of friendship that holds through the worst seasons, about what it means to find someone who tells you the truth even when the truth is not what you came to hear. His voice was controlled throughout, steady. But near the end he paused, just briefly, and his eyes moved across the room and found Adayeze's with a precision that made her breath stop entirely. He held her gaze. Then he said, still looking directly at her, "The bravest thing I have ever witnessed is watching someone rebuild themselves after you have failed them. I hope to spend whatever time I am given becoming worthy of what was rebuilt." The room applauded. They thought it was about Tobena. Adayeze sat completely still. Later, much later, when Zara had fallen asleep across 2 chairs with Neka's wrap draped over her small shoulders, and the reception had softened into quiet music and slow conversation, Jinwoo found Adayeze standing alone at the far edge of the terrace where the lights were dimmer and the night air was cool. He stood beside her, not in front, beside, as if he had learned in 7 years that proximity was the only argument she might eventually listen to. "She is already asleep," he said. "She fights it," Adayeze said. "She always has. She does not want to miss anything. He gets that from you." The corner of Adaze's mouth moved despite everything. "She gets everything from me. That was the arrangement." Jinwoo turned to look at her profile. She could feel it. "I want to change the arrangement," he said quietly. The city beyond the venue glittered distantly. Inside the hall, Tobena was laughing that enormous laugh of his. The world was soft and golden and full of things Adayeze had not planned for. "You hurt me in a way that required me to rebuild every single room in my life," she said, not with anger, with the precision of a closing argument. "I built Zara in the space you left. I built my career in it. I built everything I am now inside the absence of you. And it is good, Jinwoo. What I built is genuinely good. So you need to understand what you are asking me to risk." "I understand," he said. "I am not asking you to risk what you built. I am asking you to let me build beside it." He turned to face her fully. "My father died 8 months ago. The organization, the structure, the threats, the leverage he held over every life connected to him, it died with him. I have spent the last 8 months dismantling what remained. His eyes held hers steadily. I am not that world anymore. The last chain holding me to it is gone, and the first thing I did when it was gone was call your brother and ask to be his best man. She stared at him. You engineered this entire weekend. Yes, he said simply, because I knew that if I called you, you would not pick up. If I came to your door, you would not open it. I needed to be in the same room as you in a place where you could not leave before I finished. Something moved through his expression. I am sorry for the method. I am not sorry for being here. The silence between them was enormous and necessary.
Then Jinwoo said her name. Just that. The way he always had. Low and deliberate, and like something he had been holding carefully for a very long time. She closed her eyes. 7 years. All that silence. All that survival. All that magnificent, careful rebuilding. She thought about Zara on that dance floor. Zara grabbing the hand of a stranger without a single moment of hesitation. Zara with his eyes, laughing in the golden light, completely unafraid. She thought about the girl she had been at 23 who fell without a map. She thought about the woman she was now who knew exactly what she was worth and exactly what it would cost to let someone in again. She opened her eyes and turned to face him fully. You get one chance, she said quietly. One. And the moment Zara is anything less than your entire world, we are finished. Not a conversation, not a discussion, finished. Something moved through Jinwoo's expression that she had never seen there before. It took her a moment to name it. Relief. Raw and complete and devastating. He reached up slowly, giving her every opportunity to step back, and traced the line of her jaw with his thumb. Gentle, careful. The same gesture he had made on a night in Seoul 7 years ago that had started everything. Zara is already my entire world, he said. Both of you are. You always were. I just had to survive long enough to come back and prove it. Adieze felt the last wall come down. Not crumbling, not collapsing.
Just quietly, finally opening. Like a door that was never truly locked, just waiting for the right person to stop preparing and simply walk through. Some men disappear because they are cowards. And some men disappear because love, in its most desperate form, sometimes looks exactly like leaving. Adieze did not forgive Jinwoo because she forgot what his silence cost her. She forgave him because she was powerful enough to decide what the next chapter of her own story looked like. And she decided it looked like this. Like amber light and a sleeping daughter, and a man who had spent 7 years preparing to be worthy of the moment he was standing inside. And Zara, bold, fearless, perceptive Zara, who had never learned to be afraid of quiet men, had already made the decision for all of them the moment she grabbed a stranger's hand and said, "Come on then." Sometimes healing looks like a 6-year-old who never learned to be afraid. Now tell me, did Adieze make the right decision, giving Jinwoo his one chance? Or did she open that door too soon? And what do you think happens when Tobena finds out that his best man is also his niece's father? Drop everything in the comments below. I read every single one and I want to hear your thoughts. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on your notifications, because the next episode is going to be even more intense than this one, and you do not want to be the person who missed it. Share this with someone who needs to believe that real love does not always miss its timing. Sometimes it just takes the long way home. Thank you for watching. Until next time, keep believing in love that comes prepared.